Let me give you a word of advice: if you see someone swaggering like this on the street, don't be stupid enough to mess with them. In this prison, no one dares to touch him. No one knows what he's truly capable of. You'd think his reputation would keep people away, but one thick-headed idiot came crawling over asking for his birth name. That bald bloke with way too much hair has been here most of his life, never feared a single soul. That's exactly why I ended up behind bars. This time, they're going to learn what happens when a tiger stays quiet and the dogs think the jungle's theirs. His name? Tommy. A lad who fears nothing and no one. While others were still studying, he was already signing his marriage papers with his girlfriend at the police station. And that's not all. He's only 17, but already has 16.5 years of experience flying heavy-duty aircraft, metaphorically speaking. Back in secondary school, he was already charming a woman nearly twice his age. Days were spent hauling suitcases on construction sites, nights cuddling his girlfriend like he was holding live grenades. Tommy was content. Surrounded by family, friends, colleagues who all adored him. Back in the day, he was a proper hard nut, feared no one. But now that he's a dad, he's a lot more cautious. Even if someone whistles at him and nearly dislocates his shoulder, he just swallows it. All because he doesn't want any trouble affecting the baby in his wife's belly. The old Tommy would have dug that bloke's grave by now. Like how the calm always comes before the storm, that's exactly how Tommy's life was. But recently, chaos has broken out in his town, all thanks to a gang of freeloaders who think the world owes them. They run riot, bold as brass, no fear in them. They're everywhere, from homes to city streets. Even the police just stand by, not daring to interfere. The puppet master behind all this? None other than Dan Tun, the balding thug with too much hair. He's young, but packed with experience. Spent more time in prison than at home, jailed 18 times for letting his hands move faster than his brain. Add 25 more times for public disturbances. Even the officers are tired of arresting him. After causing chaos, the lot of them move to another area to continue their nonsense. They sit there like kings, but to me, they look like clowns on a carousel. Real head cases, showing up in luxury cars just to go steal dogs. First stop? A jewelry shop on Hangback Street. They smashed the cases like they were taking what their dads bought them. The shop owner, a heavy-set man, didn't even get to react before getting a gun in his face. He collapsed. The whole scene looked far too familiar, like something I'd seen before. After nicking a pile of silver, they planned a night of partying. AG-63 was already waiting to escort them straight to the heart of Hanoi. Still deciding whether to call girls or get high, they were suddenly ambushed. The ones in the car muttered, "That's it, we're done for." 4 of them bolted like headless chickens. But even with rocket boosters up their backsides, they weren't getting away from that summer heat. The police quickly caught up and served them a hot cup of strong tea at the station. What they didn't expect was who'd be taking their statements: Eli. Tommy's wife, currently on an internship at the precinct. She calmly read out their crimes one by one. Assault, robbery, attacking law enforcement. Even with a lawyer, they'd be facing 5 years behind bars. Dan Tun shouted, "5 years? I didn't steal no car. I just borrowed it, no one was using it." You could only sigh at their nonsense. Eli gave them 3 days out on bail to settle personal matters. After that, back in for sentencing. At the same time, a pale-looking bloke showed up to give a statement. For some reason, he was bold enough to hit Eli. But he didn't realize the entire thing was caught on camera. If she chose to report it, his charges would get worse. Then news broke on TV about a major jewelry heist from the night before. A watch worth $400 million had been stolen. Dan Tun gleefully raised the watch in his hand, the very same one. But he didn't realize Eli was watching from behind. Tears welled in her eyes. She knew this was the culprit. Dan Tun saw her expression and realized he'd been caught. If she spilled the truth, who knows how many years they'd all face. Dan Tun quickly plotted with his dim-witted henchman, a guy who always looked like a soggy rice cracker, to silence Eli before she could talk. Normally, Tommy would have picked her up after work, but he was busy. Eli waited too long and decided to go alone, terrified but determined. She had barely stepped inside when she was punched square in the face. She screamed, but the thug kept beating her relentlessly. Thinking they'd killed her, the attackers fled. Tommy arrived too late. She was in a terrible state, bruised and battered, but miraculously still alive. The next day, she woke up but was deeply shaken. Tommy asked, "What happened? Who did this to you?" Eli said, "I don't know what his face looked like exactly, but I suspect it was that black guy who slapped me at the station. If not him, then someone from Dan Tun's gang. I'm sure they were behind the robbery." Hearing this, Tommy was devastated. Though she survived, the baby didn't. Her injuries were too severe. Their hopes and promises vanished overnight. The usually tough Tommy couldn't hold back his tears. To make it worse, Eli lost the ability to have children. She didn't want to burden Tommy anymore and decided to leave him. He tried to stop her, but she'd made up her mind. Having lost everything in one night, Tommy vowed to get revenge. If he couldn't settle the score, he wasn't worthy of being a builder. He would make sure they all paid. He discovered Dan Tun's gang and the man who attacked his wife were all locked up in the city prison. Fueled by rage, Tommy attacked a police officer, landing a punch to the teeth. Another came at him, Tommy kneed him and sent him straight to the afterlife. Smiling with satisfaction, he raised his hands and surrendered. He was sentenced to 2 years in juvenile prison, but showed no sign of remorse. When the female officer asked if he understood his wrongdoing, he shook his head, defiant. They slapped a pair of handcuffs on him and sent him off. He had one goal: vengeance. Upon arrival, he was stripped for intake. A guard, learning Tommy had decked 2 officers, gave him a black eye on the spot. Still, Tommy smirked innocently. He wanted them to hate him. That night, Tommy was moved to the high-risk juvenile section, a chaotic place where 18 inmates on average gave up on life daily. The ringleader here was a long-haired brute named Thomas. He threatened Tommy, "Obey me and you'll survive. Cross me and you'll die." But Tommy remained calm. He was assigned to share a cell with Rocky, a smooth-looking lad from Africa. Rocky asked why he was in. Tommy simply said, "Justice." The next day, Rocky explained the rules of this hellhole. Then a black inmate came to intimidate them. His name? Milu, like some cursed puppy. He was part of Dan Tun's gang, one of the ones Tommy was after. Tommy didn't strike, not yet. Life inside was strangely relaxed. They'd eat till they burst, then get dragged out for pointless exercise. And guess what? Dan Tun's other goons, the one with dreadlocks and the squinty-eyed Kevin, were also there. So was the black guy with a lightning tattoo under his eye, the one who slapped Eli. With all 5 targets in one place, Tommy was thrilled. He didn't care who exactly had hurt Eli, he'd take them all down. Better to hit the wrong ones than let the right one walk, he thought. But he needed strength, so he trained like mad. Day and night he pushed himself. Thousands of representatives, punches, runs. All while plotting revenge. Over time, he learned Dan Tun ran the prison, second only to his henchmen Milu and Kevin. The dreadlocked guy had left the gang. Milu, meanwhile, was running extortion rackets, including charging black inmates protection money. Even Rocky had to pay. Dan Tun and his crew were also dealing drugs without fear, thanks to Warden Thomas, who partied with them like mad. Tommy realized Dan Tun was heavily protected, so the best plan was to start with the lone wolf, the tattooed guy. Rocky told him, only act in the showers or cells. The rest of the place was crawling with cameras. Tommy approached the man, pretending to buy drugs. "Got any flour? I need some for baking." The guy saw potential in Tommy and invited him to cell 69. Tommy didn't wait. That night, with everyone asleep, he slipped on gloves and headed for payback. "You laid hands on my wife? I'll break your face," he growled. The man stammered, "It wasn't me, it was Dan Tun's gang." But Tommy wasn't having any of it. In a fit of rage, he smashed a chair over the guy's head, sending him straight to the afterlife. From that month onward, this guy would be joining the ancestors every full moon and first day of the month. Very soon, Dan Tun the Bald and his crew, whose noses were sharper than bloodhounds, caught wind of what had happened. He called Tommy into his cell and laid down the law. Tommy nearly soiled himself, thinking his plan had been exposed and that they were going to finish him off. But to his surprise, things turned out completely different. It turned out Dan Tun and his gang had no idea why Tommy attacked the black guy, but they fully supported him. That guy had long been a thorn in their side and a rival in the flower trafficking business. Once, he'd even sent Kevin the squinty-eyed lad flying headfirst into a concrete wall without any chance for payback. Danton lit a smoke and offered one to Tommy, inviting him to join the gang. "Stick with us, mate. You'll have all the booze and babes you could ask for." But when Tommy looked at these scumbags, those who ruined his family, he could only dream of smashing each of them in the face. How could he ever become one of them? Tommy stayed completely silent. Danton snapped, "What's wrong, you mutt? You think you're better than me? Want to lose your teeth and sip porridge, eh?" Realizing this wasn't something he could joke his way out of, Tommy reluctantly said he'd think about it. Only then did they let him go without roughing him up. The next day, in the gym, a guy charged in like an underground train, wielding a knife, and went straight for Danton's gang. But they were too many and too vicious, they beat him to a pulp. The guards? They suddenly forgot how to hear or see. Clearly, things were about to get messy. The next morning, Tommy found the guy who'd been attacked and said, "I'll help you send them all to hell. But in return, show me how to make weapons. As the saying goes, the enemy of my enemy is my friend." The guy agreed and taught Tommy everything. Once he left the cell somehow, Tommy got to work using whatever he could find to craft a small knife. Indeed, hard work pays off. Tommy finally managed to forge a weapon of his own. With this heat in hand, he decided to target the next guy, the black man with dreadlocks. Since he'd left Danton's gang, taking him down would be easier. This guy used to be a big-shot gangster, but since landing in prison, he'd shown genuine regret. He'd left Danton's group to join a righteous Muslim brotherhood. Before Tommy could even say anything, he advised him to ally with Danton's gang. "That was the biggest mistake of my life, and I've been paying for it ever since," he said. Turns out, he had seen Danton give Tommy that dodgy drink the other day and just wanted to warn him. "I have a baby daughter out there," he added, his eyes filled with sorrow. Tommy was genuinely taken aback. Looking into the man's eyes, Tommy saw a father's pain. He believed this guy could never have harmed a pregnant woman like his wife. So Tommy silently walked away, deciding to shift his focus to the remaining 3 from Danton's gang. Back in his cell, he started working on his next move. He told his cellmate, "When that bloke Milu comes to collect protection money from you, don't give him anything. I'll handle it." Rocky didn't quite understand but agreed. That evening, when Milu came looking for his money in the shower block, Tommy was already there, waiting by the door, ready to draw blood. But Milu underestimated Tommy. He attacked first, making Tommy drop his knife. Still, Tommy was quicker and more agile, and after a flurry of blows, he took the upper hand. However, Milu fought dirty. He gouged at Tommy's eyes, then grabbed the knife and went in for the kill. But karma hit hard, he slipped, smashed his head on the floor, and knocked himself out cold. Tommy quickly retrieved his weapon and fled. Milu was dead. Now, only 2 remained, Danton and his right-hand man, Kevin the Squinter. Tommy knew that one look at the bruises on his face and Danton would suspect the truth. So he had to move fast. Catching Kevin mid-toilet break, Tommy pounced like a beast unleashed. Ever since he'd been single, Tommy had been training hard, and now his muscles bulged. One neck grab and Kevin was out cold. He tossed him into the toilet pit and moved on to deal with Danton. He stormed into Danton's cell. "It was you. You're the one who hurt my wife." Danton smirked, "Mate, I was just trying to help you find a hotter one." Turned out, since his lackey hadn't done the job, Danton took matters into his own hands. Enraged, Tommy shouted, "You'll die like the rest of your crew." Danton laughed. "You think you can beat me? Come on, take your best shot, mate." He'd been expecting Tommy to show up. Danton had enlisted help from a fellow junkie. They ganged up on Tommy, attacking him with their clothes, of all things. A corrupt guard barged in, not to stop the fight, but to join the party. He wanted to keep the place free of ghosts so his drug dens wouldn't be haunted. He dragged Tommy to solitary and used his torn-up clothes to stage a suicide scene. But he didn't kill him, he wanted Tommy to suffer. He even pissed on a sharpened shield and brought it into the cell to torment him. His goal, to break Tommy's body and mind for touching his mates. Half dead, Tommy found the guard's clothes and put them on for warmth. In that moment, he felt utterly broken. His vengeance was incomplete, yet he was barely alive. The man who shattered his family was still out there, grinning. Tommy could only scream in agony. Thankfully, that scream reached a female officer, who peeked in. Shocked by the abuse, she reported it to her superior. The warden arrived and gave the guard a moral lecture, then ordered the cell to be opened and Tommy freed Dan Tun, realizing his crew had been wiped out, found the black man with dreadlocks and said, "Tommy is the husband of that intern cop. Milu and Kevin died because of him. I'll get you out next week, but you must take care of his woman for me. If you don't, and he snitches, we're all finished." But the black guy refused. "I've had enough blood on my hands." Dan Tun threatened, "You go soft, and I'll handle your wife and daughter myself." Meanwhile, Tommy returned to his cell. Though covered in injuries, his will remained unshaken. Just then, the black man reappeared. "You think I attacked your pregnant wife? It was that dog Dan Tun. He's using my daughter as leverage. He wants me to kill your girl when I'm released, but I won't harm anyone." With that, he left. Tommy now understood what needed to be done. The next day, the black man's wife and child visited him. Dan Tun swaggered in, ruffled the girl's hair, and made threats, absolutely vile. Tommy sprang into action. He teamed up with Rocky again. During lunch, as Dan Tun left, Tommy quietly followed. Rocky jumped on a table and rallied the inmates to rise up against the inhumane guards. This created the perfect distraction. A full-blown uprising erupted. The prisoners had been holding back their anger for too long. With someone finally standing up, a wave of resistance spread. Tommy grabbed his homemade blade and marched into the room, ready to finish what he started. Dan Tun was already waiting. He'd come prepared. Tommy, though armed, was badly wounded and stood little chance. Dan Tun beat him senseless, tossing him down the stairs like a rag doll. Standing over him, he sneered, "I'll take care of you first, then that mutt of a wife of yours." Tommy, half conscious, could barely move. But in one final act of rage, he rose and struck Dan Tun hard enough to make him realize Tommy wasn't so weak after all. Meanwhile, the guards were getting pummeled by inmates. "You beat us for hours, we'll give it back twice as hard," they shouted. Thomas the guard couldn't even lift his head after the battering. Then a medical team burst in to stop the chaos. They were tough, but with no weapons, it was a hard fight. In just 80 seconds, the riot was over. Dan Tun lay on the ground, chest crushed, waiting for a coffin. The cavalry arrived too late. Tommy, barely able to stand, asked to be taken back to his cell to recover. He was exhausted. As they say, time heals all wounds. Tommy eventually came back to his senses, though his eye never would. Now he was officially part of the One-Eyed Brotherhood. But unlike others, he'd become the boss. Everyone feared him. He'd finally avenged his wife, the woman more pitiful than guilty. From a humble bricklayer to the king of prison. No one could have imagined it. The black man with dreadlocks was finally released. His wife, dark-skinned and radiant, came to pick him up. She whispered, "I've been waiting for this night, my love." Their daughter beamed, watching her parents reunite. This film reminds us, no matter how low we fall, someone is still waiting at home. Our parents will always love us. They'd do anything for us, even die, if it meant we lived well. So wherever you go, don't forget to visit your parents often. They only want us to be good, kind people. And let's be honest, being a good person is hard. Being bad? Anyone can do that.